Thank you, Wendy. Welcome back to the council meeting. We've just dealt with item 17.1, annual CO performance review 2020-21 and key performance indicators 21-22. And we've also had questions on confidential attachments to item 10.4. Docs on tap isn't opening for me, David. Do you have the motion there? I'll just read out the adopted motion in relation to item 17.1, that council receives the Chief Executive Officer's annual report performance 2020-21 report to council, included as a confidential attachment 1, endorses the endorses the outcome of performance review that the Chief Executive Officer has met the performance expectation of the position for the 2021 review period, approves the outcome of the remuneration review that the CEO received an additional 0.5% superannuation in line with the superannuation guarantee effective 1st July 21 and 1.5% salary increase from the 18th October 21, and approves the draft CEO key performance indicators for the 2021-22 review period contained in confidential attachment 2. 5, requests the CEO. Yes, but is that as part of that? Sorry,
through Nico, I can just read out the end of that.
No, it's okay, I can read it. Clause 4 then has the following, which was by amendment, with the addition of the following KPI, demonstrate progress towards implementation of the Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan. And clause 5 requests the CEO performance review panel to meet with Mr. McLennan in February 22 to support progress against the CEO performance indicators and development actions. So that was item 17.1. Thank you very much, CEO. So item 10.4, tender number IE 108 of 2021, tree watering and tree planting. Can I please have a mover and seconder for this item? Moved by Councillor Loden, seconded by Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll foreshadow a deferral, but allow others an opportunity to speak if they so wish.
Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Michael. I think I would be supportive of a motion to defer if it did come forwards. I'm kind of interested in exploring the idea of providing these services in-house in somewhat more detail. I apologise for not going into it in more detail in the briefing session, but I thought it was going to be somewhat covered off by some questions that Councillor Loden raised and were taken on notice. I guess with a $1.5 million contract value and 75% of that going into labour, I think it's reasonable to question whether that labour could be brought in-house, where we could have more control over the employment conditions and also more control over the workplace culture of the people that are out there in a fairly front-facing role. I understand the points that have been raised about truck numbers and flexibility there. That probably does require some work, but I'm also very aware that flatbed trucks and water carts are readily hireable from a number of organisations around Perth. It's potentially something that we already do. So yeah, I guess I would support the deferral so that we can have a reasonably detailed analysis of what it would cost to provide this in-house and what consequences there would be around seasonality of labour and things like that.
Thank you, council members. Councillor Gontaszewski.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support a motion for deferral. I would just like to support Councillor Wallace's statements around the need prior to undertaking a tender process to ensure that there is a need for that procurement and that the model that has been used for procurement is still valid with changing conditions. I think that is a key part of the city's existing process, and so from what I've been told, and so I don't believe it should be too challenging to bring some of that information forward for council members so that to satisfy those queries. I also think tenders can be a very tricky and somewhat delicate area, and that we are trying to navigate that in an appropriate fashion. I think that I want to be clear in relation to the questions that potentially are being asked. I don't believe that councillors are requesting for a any decisions that come forward from an independent procurement panel to be changed. The panel makes its decisions and makes its report. But as with any decision that we make, we should be able to justify it in a manner that is able to provide sufficient detail. And when we're talking about tenders that are a significant expense, if a question is asked as to why a particular rating may have been given, I don't think it's unreasonable for that panel to be able to provide written documentation to justify their position. I think that is very different from seeking to change that panel's recommendation. It's about assurance and which is an appropriate role to have, and without necessarily compromising the independence and the decision making of that panel.
Councillors? Yep.
Through you, Mayor Cole, just to comment if confirm that the reason for the deferral would be about potentially exploring in-housing a service, which of this magnitude would only be something that could be contemplated during the annual budget review, and would need to provide a service delivery review report to inform that if we're going to be purchasing major capital equipment plus increasing our salary budget. So I just wanted to get clarification.
I think we just have to wait for the deferral to be moved prior to, but good thinking material.
Okay.
Note the question. Is there any further comments before there may be a procedural motion? I just have one question. Director, if this is deferred, are you able to guarantee the service that's under, that this service can continue in the meantime?
Through you, Mayor Cole, the contract is still engaged. They're continuing the service. It expired a couple of weeks ago, the contract. So we'll speak to them tomorrow. I'm sure there won't be any problem with them continuing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, Councillor Loden.
I would like to move a deferral motion, with the reason being to allow for some additional details to be provided in the queries that were raised in the confidential section. Just noting I can't talk to the specifics of that because it was a confidential item. And also to provide potentially some additional details around what it would require to bring it in-house for the city. And if that is going to be something that takes an extensive period of time, service review, all that sort of stuff, what the consequences would be of doing a holdover provision or something like that. Is there an option to do that in a temporary nature, or is that something that we would have to reconsider for a budget process and extend the contract for a year or something like that? Is that sufficient detail?
Councillor Wallace, does that cover your matters? Yes, okay, yep. So we have a deferral motion. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wallace. With deferral motions, it's procedural, so there is no debate. So I will put the motion. All those in favour? Declare that carried unanimously. So, given that we've dealt with our confidential item this evening, there being no notices of motion, we have concluded business for the meeting, the ordinary council meeting of the 14th of September 2021. So I will declare the meeting closed at 8:52 p.m. and thank you all for attending and live streaming and participating in the meeting. Thank you.